Jiro here for Ember Games with a review of Phoenix Point Behemoth Edition, released physically on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I started the PS4 version, and about a week or so in, they released the free upgrade to PS5 version, which allegedly cut some loading times. The game was previously released in December 2019 on PC, and had several DLC additions over the years which are all wrapped up and included in this Behemoth version. Phoenix Point comes from Snapshot Games, led by Julian Gollop, who is known for creating the original XCOM UFO defense for PC way back in the day. It was ported to PS1 too, I believe. If the name XCOM sounds familiar though and you weren't playing PC in the 90s, Firaxis picked it up and did two phenomenal entries, XCOM Enemy Unknown and XCOM 2, both with several sets of DLC. The first in the PS3 generation and the latter was on PS4 or Xbox One. I'm not sure what took place to get the XCOM series into Firaxis' hand versus it staying with its original creator, but it definitely feels like Gollop played the new entries because they share a lot of similarities. Phoenix Point is a turn-based strategy game where you control squads of soldiers and hunt mutants called Pandorans, Earth creatures mutated by the pandoravirus, and a handful of different mission objectives. The thing about this game and previous XCOM games is the metagame, where you control the global development of an organization, gathering resources, building bases, extending satellite coverage to monitor and defend the planet in a simulation mode. When you begin a new game in Phoenix Point Behemoth Edition, you pick your difficulty and also choose which DLC packs you want to include in that particular run. You start with a small crew, a ship, and a single base. You'll see question mark icons all over the map to send your ship to do some text-based adventure events, or decision-making or scavenging missions to gain materials for manufacturing gear and base upgrades. One other type of location the question mark will be is a sizable change to the XCOM formula in the existence of 3 factions that live within structures called havens. You have a relationship with each of these, and they have relationships with each other. You can increase or decrease that relationship by sabotaging other havens on their behalf, stealing things, or by defending them when Pandorans attack. You'll see the world turn red emanating from various points. This is the Pandorans spreading their mist. After having a satellite uplink installed in your base, it will begin to emanate a larger and larger circle around your base, revealing more question mark locations, but more importantly help you detect where those Pandoran nests are, the epicenters for the red mist growth. When your base or a haven gets attacked from a base that falls within your detection range, it will show you the location of that base, which you can then lead an assault attempting to eradicate it. I would say this is probably kind of the main game loop as you work to stretch your reach across the globe. You'll always have an objective to push the main game forward, which is fulfilling missions at specific locations or performing research on certain things. Research happens over time, and speed is increased by how many laboratories you have combined in all of your bases. Relationships with the other nations can also accelerate research in the form of them gifting it to you with a high reputation, or you can steal it from their labs and their havens with a mission. You can have any number of soldiers recruited for your cause. By default, your people will be assault, heavy, or sniper class. There are additional classes that can be unlocked, gaining reputation with the factions, and you also get the ability to recruit them from faction havens directly for a price. Soldiers can level to 7, each level giving them access to class abilities as well as random innate ones. You get skill points per soldier for their actions in battle, and accomplishing ground missions also contributes to a global skill point pool any soldier can use. In addition to opening skills, skill points are also used to increase 3 stats: strength for carrying items and HP max, willpower for special abilities and retaining sanity, and speed, increasing the distance a soldier can move in a turn. While on a mission, you control your squad in a movement phase, and then independent or faction entities get their move phase, and then the enemy, which can be factions also, but usually Pandorans, get their turn. Each soldier gets 4 action points per turn, which they can expend on movement, abilities, or firing weapons, each of which takes a specific number of points. Now, one advancement to the XCOM formula here, instead of just assigning a seemingly random percentage when you fire, you actually get a reticle with 2 circles. 50% of your shots are guaranteed to hit in the inner circle, and 100% of your shots will be within that outer circle. You can aim for specific body parts of enemies and disable them, disallowing the enemy to shoot or use abilities with that part if you can deplete that part's HP entirely. While I definitely enjoy this format more, one thing that's not quite obvious at first, when you're aiming, it's just in slow motion. So even though you have a fully lined up shot in your circles, between the time you pull the trigger and the projectiles hit your target, they're still kind of moving side by side or up and down in their idle animation. Most enemies have some armor in addition to HP, which can take a bit to break through, increased by the shred stat of a weapon, before you can break through and really do some damage. Another advance in Phoenix Point is with Overwatch. So if a soldier can't quite reach an enemy with their allotted action points in a turn, but you know there's one coming for them, you can use your action points to go into Overwatch. In XCOM, this would be a predetermined area of fire. In Phoenix Point, you can actually create a cone, aim it in a certain direction, and change its width. This felt great, but I have to say there were a few times I'm pretty sure something didn't trigger that looked like it very obviously should have. I don't know, could just be me. Mission objectives are usually take out all the enemy or secure the area. Some missions have a slightly different take, where new enemies pop in every round, or you have to get to a certain tile, or in the case of scavenging missions, get as many chests as you can and evacuate before you get overrun. The mission map variety got stale a little fast too, with just a handful of pretty samey levels. Even if they're rearranging some of the structures, it sure didn't really feel like it, so some of the missions were just like, well, here we go again. Haven and base defense will have you killing enemies before they destroy structures, or before all civilians are wiped out as well. Enemies will occasionally drop their gear you can pick up, and if you get enough, you can reverse engineer most so you can produce them yourself. But it really did seem like the drop rate was kind of low. There ends up being a ton of equipment overall, with the ability to get technologies from other factions in addition to your own research. Aside from having status effects though, like viruses that destroy will points, poison that eats HP, and acid that destroys armor, the increment and power upgrade between weapons kinda seemed fairly insignificant. The major thing that changes in the game is enemy armor increases, and you need something pretty quickly to help you start shredding armor. The story is told through painted still cutscenes, as Phoenix works to get to the bottom of the spread of the pandoravirus, looking for a solution to halt it. The plot was enjoyable with a fun twist, at least the ending I got. I think there are more than one. Writing and voice acting are pretty solid too. So I started my first game on veteran difficulty with the default all DLC turned on because remembering the XCOM patches that add more maps and some specific story missions really enhanced the experience. With Phoenix Point, I would advise you to turn off all DLC for your first game. In XCOM, emergencies would come up and you may lose a nation or maybe not get to a mission you wanted to, but on normal difficulty, if you were smart about it and quick, you could get through the game with just kind of a couple small fires. Phoenix Point with all DLC on feels like the world is on fire and you're just doing what you can to survive. Which, I know what you're thinking, I mean, that can be fun. The game even warns you that you can't do it all, you have to choose what you sacrifice. Now, the first thing that gets me, I understand it logistically, but man, it's a little frustrating. As I mentioned, the way you discover layers is by a Haven getting attacked and you defend, and the Pandoran base that sent the attack has to be in your satellite range of one of your bases. The number of times I got the message we couldn't determine the origin was more often than not. I mean, you don't get to choose base placement, you activate ones that are already there, and there are gaps. Enemy layers have 3 stages of growth, and if they're not taken down, they increase in difficulty with each one. Every base you unlock is more and more expensive, and the satellite uplink takes several days to build, and once installed takes multiple in-game days to get fully extended. Having a fully equipped crew and ship also costs significant resources, and man, the number of times an attack would happen with literally in-game minutes of my being able to get my ship there was frequent. Also, as long as Pandoran bases exist, your reputation with all 3 factions drops like every few days or week. Also, if a Pandoran base exists near yours, they will send attack groups forcing you to a ground-based defense mission. Not to mention if you have the Festering Skies DLC turned on, which adds air combat, extremely driven by RNG, as a giant behemoth comes up every few days and just lays waste to random havens and bases. Half the time it was on the other side of the globe where I just got messages it was destroying things and I had no way to reach it. But even if I did, I was often outgunned. There's several air weapon and defense types that have to be equipped on your craft at a base, and the only way to hit an enemy aircraft is to go to a place where they're attacking and reach it while they're still there, and it really was just kind of a mess, especially when you're just learning the game. Oh, also, you lose the game if the population of the world falls below 10%. My first aforementioned attempt with DLC on, I had 57 hours into the game. The population of the world was down to 32%, and I had a base being attacked nearly every other day from places I couldn't find, or Stage 3 Pandoran bases that I didn't have the technology yet to take down the minions inside effectively. Base defense, there are no rewards either, other than your facilities aren't trashed, so the game just started getting really monotonous. I stopped the slow downhill burn and just restarted the game with the DLC off. Now, your mileage may vary. The game was made in Unity, and with it comes the occasional hitching, and I think I ended up with about 20 crashes in 90 hours, usually transitioning to or coming out of missions, sometimes just randomly during a turn. You can save at any time, and highly recommend doing so as much as possible. Overall, I have to admit, I was a little bit disappointed in this game, or just maybe had my expectations too high. The difficulty spikes caused by RNG can be really frustrating, not to mention some of the main quests also depend on RNG to pop or complete. I did like the reticle change in the Overwatch cone setting though. Having a map full of icons to hit with little text adventures was a cool addition to the formula as well. The factions added a neat layer too. As I said, map variety was lacking, and the crashes could be a bit frustrating. Load times even with the PS5 upgrade would be enough to get up and use the restroom. So if you're interested in this and haven't played the last 2 XCOM games, I definitely recommend you start there first. And if you still need more and can't wait for Firaxis' new Marvel turn-based game Midnight Suns, allegedly due out this year, 2022, then yeah, this game's here for you. Rated as a simulation strategy RPG hybrid, Phoenix Point Behemoth Edition hits a 58 out of 100 on my true 0 to 100 scale, where 50 is an average game. This is Jiro for Umber Games. Thanks for watching.